Hey, welcome everyone to the second of 6 in the Belfast Met Design Workshop webinar series, an introduction to design thinking. For anyone that needs to get in touch for more details on how Belfast Met can support your business, just email us at businessdevelopment@belfastmet.ac.uk or at E3_Belfast Met on Twitter. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Carlos Latcham, and I've been involved with the many aspects of product development for over 20 years. I've been an engineer and a designer in the aerospace, the automotive, the medical, consumer product, and heavy equipment industries. I've headed design teams as well as just being a cog in the development process in companies both large and small. I've managed projects from a few £100 up to over £1 million. Regardless of the size of the project, I find the process of problem solving very satisfying, and I get a great feeling when I see people benefiting from the products I help to create. I'm currently a design consultant with Belfast Met, as well as running my own product development consultancy, Dark Red Design, based in Belfast. I would like to thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions during the webinar, please put them into the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them at the end if I can. So without further ado, let's get into it. So in the previous webinar, we looked at design thinking and what it is. If you missed it, you should be able to watch it on the Belfast Met YouTube channel. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test. We looked at these in turn briefly. In this webinar, we'll look at tools for empathizing with users. Empathy is a crucial component of the design thinking process, as it forms the first phase of any design project. During the empathize phase, the designer spends time understanding the user's needs, their wants and objectives by observing and engaging with them on a psychological and emotional level. To empathize with your user, the designer must set aside their assumptions and suspend their own view of the world. This means seeing the world through the user's eyes and understanding their unique perspective. It's essential to gather real insights about the user rather than relying on assumptions, especially in the context of human-centered design. The success of your design ultimately depends on how well you understand and empathize with your users. If you fail to fully grasp their needs, their desires, and pain points, your design may miss the mark and fail to provide an apt solution. As a designer, it's crucial to adopt the design thinking mindset that prioritizes empathy at every stage. This means taking the time to get to know your users, experiencing their challenges and frustrations as if they were your own, and using this empathy to inform your design decisions. This can be achieved with various methods, including interviews, surveys, and ethnographic studies, amongst others. In this guide, we'll explore the importance of empathy in design, where it fits into the design thinking process, and most importantly, how you can develop your skills as an empathic designer. Empathy is the ability to understand and experience the feelings, thoughts, and experiences of others without explicit communication. It allows designers to put themselves in the shoes of the users and truly see the world through their eyes in a given context or situation. By building empathy, designers can create products that truly please their users and make their lives easier. In a social context, empathy often drives us to take action. Designers need to build empathy for the users in order to take the right course of action. It's important to understand how the user feels when interacting with a certain product or interface and how the design evokes certain emotions in them. Without empathy, the design process lacks user centricity, which can mark the distinction between product success and failure. Empathy is a critical element of design thinking because it helps designers understand the needs, wants, and the perspectives of the people they're designing for. By putting themselves in the shoes of their users, designers can gain a deeper understanding of the challenges and opportunities that their users face, resulting in more intuitive, useful, and enjoyable products and services. Empathy also helps designers identify new opportunities for innovation. By understanding the challenges and pain points that the users face, designers can create innovative solutions that address those needs, resulting in new products and services that meet the needs of those users. Overall, empathy is essential in design thinking because it enables you, the designer, to create products and services that truly meet the needs of your user, and also to identify those new opportunities for innovation. So what is empathetic design? Empathetic design is a user-centered design approach that prioritizes the needs and experiences of the user. The empathize stage is focused on identifying latent or unarticulated user needs and behaviors, which requires observing users in action and distinguishing between what they say, what they do, and what they actually do. Empathic research and design is not concerned with demographic facts about the user, but rather their feelings and motivations in certain situations. The insights gained during the empathize phase help designers to create user experiences that cater to their audiences and more meaningful and effective. To practice empathetic design, designers need to have a deep understanding of the user's context, including their physical environment, cultural background, and social norms. They should actively listen to user feedback and incorporate it into the design thinking process, using methods such as user research, prototyping, and testing to continuously iterate and improve that design. Empathetic design can lead to more user-friendly and effective products, services, and those experiences, which increases customer satisfaction, loyalty, and advocacy. Overall, empathetic design is the design approach that prioritizes understanding and meeting the needs of those users, leading to more impactful and meaningful designs. For those pursuing a career in product design, it's important to recognize the significance of empathy. Research suggests that empathy is not an innate personality trait, as only 10% of the variation between people's levels of compassion and understanding can be attributed to genes. According to the largest ever study on the genetic basis of empathy, this indicates that empathy can be developed and enhanced through deliberate effort. Before we explore the various techniques utilized in empathize phase, we're going to discuss how you can cultivate your empathetic design skills. On screen are 6 techniques used to empathize with the users. 2 are red herrings. They are not considered as empathizing with the user. Can you spot them? It's number 5 and 6. If you worked out which ones, well done. So what does answering questions for the users or asking a user what they want look like? It may seem obvious, but let's see an example of what that looks like. Here's an example of the designer answering a question for the user. Let's say you're designing a new phone. You ask the user, how do you decide whether or not to purchase a new phone? There's a pause. You follow up with, perhaps you look on comparison websites like Money Supermarket or check YouTube to see what people are saying first. The interviewee says, yeah, I guess I've watched reviews on YouTube. For a lot of us, when speaking to someone, there's nothing more awkward than silence. When there's a momentary pause, we like to jump in to try and help, but we end up projecting our own solutions onto our interviewee and undermine our ability to truly understand how they think. Silence signals that the interviewee is thinking. Instead of seeing silence as awkward, use it to get more quality responses out of your interviews. So you say to the user, how do you decide whether or not to purchase a new phone? There's a pause. There's a longer pause. You could say, perhaps you could think back to the last phone you purchased. How did you come around to deciding to buy a new phone? Where did you start? The interviewer may say, well, I saw this advert on TV and the phone had a feature that maybe addressed a problem they found cool or interesting. Being comfortable with silence takes practice. You could count to 10 in your head before giving a nudge. If you do have to nudge, avoid solutions. You want to hear their ideas and not yours. Okay, why should you avoid asking a user what they want? You, the designer, asks, we're looking to make some improvements to our latest kitchen gadget, the Whiz Wizard. What do you want to see in the next version? There's a pause. The interviewer may say, let me think. Oh, it'd be cool if you could make it silver to match my other gadgets. Sometimes we're tempted to short circuit the discovery process. It sounds much simpler to just ask the customer what they want. Asking customers what they want can be detrimental to the discovery process. It boxes you into a single solution. You risk not getting to the root of the problem and fully understanding the user's motivation. The question is too broad, and you'll likely find that everyone wants something different. Your user is put on the spot, and you're likely to get an answer that's difficult to work with. To get a higher quality response, phrase the question better. You could ask, imagine you're currently using the Whiz Wizard. In the preparation of what meals, if any, would you like to be able to use it? The interviewer may say, well, I suppose I would like to use it to make mashed potatoes. It's not able to do it currently. First, prime your interviewee so they can get into the right frame of mind. For example, imagine you're using the product. Next, make sure your prompt isn't too broad. Try to narrow it in on a specific goal. For example, what foodstuffs do users want to whiz? Finally, limit the amount of design work required of them. Your aim is to get rich data on why behind the solution. The how is for you and your team to figure out. In this example, you may find that the answers are pointing to a more powerful motor is required. Let's look at the good empathy practices. 1. Practice empathy in your everyday life. By consciously making empathy a part of your everyday life, you can develop your empathic abilities and become a more empathic designer. It's like training your empathy muscle. The more you practice, the stronger it becomes. One way to do this is by observing the people around you and putting yourself in their shoes, trying to understand how they might be feeling. As you go on to practice empathy in your daily life, you'll find it easier to empathize with your users when working on your next design project. Secondly, the power of facial expressions. Studies have found that mirroring someone's facial expressions can increase empathy by triggering greater activity in the emotion centers of the brain compared to simply observing these expressions. So we've got researchers from UCLA have found that mimicking someone's facial expressions as an empathic action can be particularly effective in building empathy. You may have experienced this reflexive reaction yourself, such as wincing when you see someone stub their toe, for instance. When interacting with others or observing your users, consider mimicking their facial expressions as a way to build empathy. Thirdly, assume a beginner's mindset. Listen, don't judge. As mentioned earlier, suspending your assumptions is crucial for developing empathy. As humans, we all have our own preconceptions, experiences, and biases, which help us make sense of the world. However, these can hinder our ability to empathize. When interacting with others, it's important to practice suspending judgments and assumptions. Think of it as a mental reset, clearing your mind of any preconceived ideas or beliefs. Listen attentively to what others are saying, and you may gain deeper insights into how they think and feel. And then pay attention to body language. Body language can reveal a wealth of information about a person's thoughts and feelings, from the way they stand or hold their arms to the slightest micro expressions on their face. As you strive to develop your empathy skills as a designer, it's important to train yourself to observe and interpret these physical cues. So we're learning that in the empathize phase of design thinking, it's important to both observe and engage with your users in order to gain a deeper understanding of their needs. To do this, there are a variety of techniques available that can help build empathy. So we're going to explore some of the most popular methods used during the empathize phase. We first have the empathy interviews. Conducting empathy interviews is a valuable way to build empathy with the people you're designing for. To make your empathy interview effective, it's important to structure it as an open conversation and avoid preconceived notions. It's recommended to ask why constantly, asking non-binary questions and paying attention to non-verbal cues. Can you hazard a guess on the type of product this family is being interviewed about? During the interview, actively listen to the person's responses. Encourage them to share their experiences and feelings in detail and avoid interrupting or imposing your own views. Which we've touched on earlier, record the interview accurately by taking notes or using a recorder. After the interview, thank the person for their time and offer to follow up with them if needed. Analyze your notes to identify key insights and patterns, and use this information to inform your design decisions. By conducting empathy interviews, you can create products and services that are more meaningful and effective for your users. There's observation and immersion. To gain deeper understanding of your users, it's crucial to observe them in action, whether in their natural environment or in a specific situation. Through observation, you can identify their unarticulated needs, motivations, and challenges. There are various ways to observe your users, such as bringing them in to interact with your product or service while being recorded, or having them keep their own photo or video journal. Have a look at this picture and tell me who you think is being observed in this picture. To answer that question, we're observing all three people in the picture: the user, the toddler, the potential customer, the mother, and the influencer, the older sibling. User observation and immersion are research methods that allow designers to experience and understand the context in which users interact with their products or services. Here we have examples. For instance, there's shadowing, which involves following users and observing how they interact with their environment and products. You could use contextual inquiry, which involves observing and interviewing users in their natural environment. Just to clarify, the difference between shadowing and contextual inquiry is while you shadow, you keep your interaction with the person to a minimum and just take notes. With contextual inquiry, there's a greater interaction. You'll likely intervene and ask the person the hows, whats, and whys as they happen to clarify their actions. You could use diary studies, which involves users recording their experiences over time using notes, photos, or video journals. And the advantage is users aren't so aware of being watched. There's participatory design, which allows users to participate in the design process. This can help ensure that the design meets the user's needs and preferences. And then there's immersive experiences, which mean you put yourself in the user's place to gain first-hand knowledge of the experience. This can provide the designer with insights into the user's emotions, reactions, and behaviors. By using these user observation and immersion methods, designers can obtain a detailed understanding of the user's needs, their challenges, and those opportunities, and then go on to use this information to inform their design decisions. Be constantly curious. Ask what, how, and why. During the empathize phase, it's crucial to analyze the what, how, and why of your user's behavior to gain a deeper understanding of their needs. To make sense of your observations, you can use the what, how, why framework, which involves dividing your page into 3 sections and breaking down your observation as follows. What? This refers to the specific details of what happens, such as the user's actions when entering their payment details on an e-commerce website. How? Consider how the user completed these actions. What were their facial expressions? Did they seem at ease, frustrated, or confused? Did they exert a lot of effort? And then there's why. And here it's time to make some educated guesses about the user's motivations and emotions as they completed these tasks. By analyzing the how and why of your user's behavior, you can empathize with them more deeply and design solutions that meet their needs. If you look at this picture, can you imagine a what, how, and why for this image on the right? Here we have empathy maps. And empathy maps are a valuable tool for both understanding your users and sharing that understanding with your team. An empathy map is a collaborative visualization that helps us articulate what we know about a particular type of user. It externalizes user knowledge to create a shared understanding of user needs and to facilitate decision making. To create an empathy map, you need to consider your users in 4 different quadrants. Says and does. This quadrant includes direct quotes from the user based on what they have said during an empathy interview. and look at the user's concrete actions, such as refreshing a page, pressing a button, or comparing different options before making a purchase. You have thinks and feels, and here you should consider what the user might be thinking, but may not want to say out loud, such as, do I look stupid for not being able to operate this gadget? Consider what emotions the user is experiencing at different points in their interaction with your product, such as frustrated, unable to identify the on-off switch. And there's C's. This describes everything that the respondent saw in their environment. What the users see is related to the end user's day-to-day experiences. These can be people, things, or even activities. What do these people do? What happens on an average day? How does the user come into contact with the product or the environment in which the product is used? Consider competition, alternative products or services, and remember that it's about the end user's world, not yours. And then there's hairs. This describes such things as what do the end user's friends say, what do other influential people say, such as clients or family. If you remember back to the picture with the toddler at play, we identified the older sibling as an influencer. So we're interested in who influences the end users and how this affects them. Additionally, consider what the user is exposed to on TV, social media, for instance, influencers or bloggers. And then below these four quadrants, we list the user's pain and gain. Pain, these are the user's biggest frustrations and their perceived obstacles from achieving their goals. And then there's gain. These are the goals the users wish to achieve, their wants and or their needs, and also how success is measured. This is an example of an empathy map for a fictitious golfer called Alex. This possibly could be used to help develop a product to help golfers improve their game. So what does Alex see? He sees various things, for instance, golf courses that vary in difficulty in design, other golfers. What does Alex hear? The sound of the golf ball being hit, other golfers discussing their strategies. What does Alex say and do? He practices his swing and techniques to improve the game. He seeks advice and feedback from others. What are Alex's pain points and challenges? He has difficulty achieving consistency and accuracy in his shots. He feels pressured to perform well in tournaments. And what are Alex's goals and gains? He wants to improve his skills and reach new levels of proficiency. And he wants to participate in tournaments and competitions and also perform well. And what does Alex think and feel? He feels competitive. Alex feels frustrated, he feels determined, and he feels connected. The final method we'll cover is user persona creation. And empathy maps can also help you create these user personas. Firstly, what is a user persona? A user persona is fabricated depiction of your optimal customer. We've learned at the start of the design process, a product designer carries out user research to establish empathy with the intended users and determine their exact requirements for the product being developed. The persona is typically derived from this research and encompasses the wants, objectives, and observed behavior patterns of the target audience. And secondly, why do you need a persona? Understanding your users is crucial when developing a product, whether it's a consumer product, toy, mobile app, or website. It allows you to create a product that solves their specific problem. To do this, you need to have a clear problem statement, which requires a deep understanding of your target audience. And this is where personas come in handy, as they provide a fictional representation of your ideal customer and helps answer those important questions about their behavior patterns, their needs, their goals, and their pain points. By creating well-defined personas, you can efficiently identify and communicate your users' needs to your team, guiding your design decisions from start to finish. And personas also make real users memorable for the product team, building in that empathy and that focus. And moreover, personas are important for communicating your findings from user research to multidisciplinary teams. They present all the essential details about your users in a memorable way that everyone can understand, not just designers. So, in short, user personas are crucial for designing a useful, desirable, and valuable product for your target audience. They serve as your Northern Star, guiding your design decisions and helping you build that empathy with your users. Now we'll look at how to define a user persona. A user persona typically consists of 4 key components: the heading, the demographic information, goals and objectives, and the scenarios. To create an effective persona, it's crucial to conduct extensive research to ensure that it accurately represents your users. You'll need to gather both qualitative and quantitative data and organize it into groups that represent your ideal customers. It's important to focus on the primary needs of your most important user groups and avoid trying to cater to everyone. Once you've identified your user group, you can begin creating personas by following these 4 steps. 1. Add a header. First element of well-defined user persona is the header, which includes a fictional name, age, and image. This can encapsulate the persona's key values related to your product. These visual and textual cues can enhance memorability and help your design team stay focused on the needs of the target audience. For example, if you're creating a toy product, your user persona header might include the following details: name, Lily, age 6. While seemingly simple, these elements serve a crucial role in making your persona memorable and guiding design decisions. Step 2. Add a demographic profile. The factual demographic details in the user persona complement the fictional name and image, adding realism to the persona based on user research. The demographic profile comprises personal background, educational or professional background, user environment, and psychographics. Here's what that could entail. So we have the personal background. This could include gender, ethnicity, education, family status, persona group. For example, working mother. For instance, Lily, the persona, is an only child in kindergarten. Professional background. This includes job occupation, income level, and work experience. And for this example, as we no longer send kids to the workhouse, this doesn't apply to Lily. We describe the physical, social, and technological context of the user. It helps to answer questions such as what technological devices users have access to, where they spend most of the time, possibly how often they collaborate with others. In Lily's case, she has some exposure to technology, but prefers hands-on tactile toys that she can physically interact with. We include psychographics, which can cover the user's attitudes, interests, motivation, and pain points. By creating that psychographic profile, you can better understand why the user behaves in a certain way and why they use your product. For instance, for the toy that you're designing, Lily enjoys playing dress up, pretend play, and making crafts. The demographic profile enhances the realism of the user persona, increasing empathy when exploring user needs and goals. In step 3, you add your goals and objectives. The end goal of user persona is the primary motivator that drives action and answers the question of what users want to achieve or fulfill by using a product. It is the key driving force that determines the persona's needs and desires. In the case of Lily, her end goal is to have fun and explore her creativity through play. She enjoys imaginative play and loves toys that allow her to express herself and create her own stories. And then step 4, you add that scenario. A scenario is a narrative that depicts how a persona would use your product to accomplish their end goals in a specific context. It's essentially a day in the life story that describes the when, where, and how a persona interacts with your product. For instance, if we consider Lily's scenario, Lily receives the dress-up kit as a birthday present from her parents. She's excited to play with that kit, starts to put on the costumes immediately. She decides to dress up as a princess. Then she goes on to spend the afternoon pretending to be a princess. And later, her friends come over for a play date. Playdate is impressed, and they join together and have some fun, spend the rest of the day playing dress up together. And as they play, Lily's friends suggest they create a story around the costume. Lily loves the idea, and together they come up with a story about two princesses who go on an adventure to save the kingdom from a dragon. And at the end of the day, Lily's friend goes home, and Lily is tired but happy. She takes off her princess dress and puts the kid away, excited to play with it again tomorrow. To ensure your user personas are effective, it's important to keep them concise and focus only on the most important elements. Generally, a persona should fit onto a single page, and you should avoid including any unnecessary details that won't influence the design process. Remember, if it doesn't contribute to the design or decision-making process, leave it out. It's also crucial to create realistic personas that accurately reflect your target audience. Avoid creating exaggerated caricatures and instead aim for specificity and detail that will help you identify real people who fit the persona. This will enable you to test and validate your product with actual users and ensure that it meets their needs and expectations. And so to wrap things up, if you need to meet shorter project timelines, personas can be a crucial tool for quickly identifying users' needs. By using real data to create typical user types, your teams can confidently design for a broader consumer base that meets users' needs. It's important to keep in mind the context of the product being designed when creating your user personas, including irrelevant details that do not influence the final design, such as Lily's favorite food or the name of her school, should be avoided. Only details that serve a design purpose should be included. Personas are useful throughout the product development phase, from deciding on prototype features right through to evaluating the final product. So now we have the Q&A section. In our third installment of our design workshop series, we will dive into the second and third step of the design thinking process, where we will introduce you to the tools which you can use to define and ideate your product concept ideas. So if you're new to design thinking, I hope you find this introduction insightful. If you've been involved in design thinking already, hopefully a little nugget of inspiration was found. The third installment is on 16th March at 1:30 p.m. And if you haven't signed up already, sign up on Eventbrite. If the experience was positive, tell your colleagues. I've been Carlos Latcham. Thanks for your time.